Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hit and Hustle from IrishSportsDaily.com. I'm your host, Greg Flammang, and here is Jamie Uyeyama. We are live right after the Notre Dame loss to Ohio State, 21-10. This was a game that Notre Dame led at halftime, 10-7. It was very reminiscent in my mind to the Georgia game in 2019. They were up 10-7 in that one as well. And then they went up, they went down. I think it was 23-10, came back, had the touchdown, and then they almost won at the end. That's not how this game went. Notre Dame they gave up the touchdown to go down 21-10, and then immediately gave it back up after that. So I don't know, Jamie. I feel like we've been here before, right? In a big game in the regular season, the Notre Dame defense played well enough to win, and Notre Dame offense just wasn't up to it. How did you feel about that?
I mean, I felt this was different than a lot of those games.
Mm-hmm.
Just in my opinion, first of all, you look at a lot of those Brian Kelly games, they get blown out in these games. They just do. They just did. There was those Georgia games. But in the one Clemson game where, Lawrence didn't play, but those were pretty much the exceptions, really, when they were playing like a top team. And, I think Ohio State, and I know they lost Jackson Smith-Njigba, and that was huge. Yeah, absolutely. That was huge. Right. Because, it's a lot easier if you're CJ Stroud and you're throwing to two guys who won in the first round last year, and then the other guy's Jackson Smith-Njigba, right? That makes a huge difference. And I think we saw that, but I also think that I thought Notre Dame staff did a tremendous job in terms of the game plan for this game. I think Al Golden did a tremendous job.
So you're talking defense specifically here.
Defense specifically. I think, and I know people are going to be very critical of Tommy Rees and kind of what happened. I mean, first of all, you hold them to 21 points. I mean, I don't care what happened in the game.
Anyone would have taken it before the game.
Anyone would have taken it.
That's
they're not going to score 21 points or less in a game the rest of the year. They will score over 30 on everybody.
Yeah, so, that's especially at the end too, where they're Notre Dame is clearly they kind of ran out of gas there.
Yeah,
I really think it's not like Ohio State was ripping off chunks. They were not.
Yeah, and that was definitely the thing. I mean, I would say that was. I think people will be critical of Tom Rees because they're always going to be critical of you only scored 10 points. They ran after that, they went up 21-10. Notre Dame only ran 45 plays in that. And obviously they punted every single time in the half. And you could say, well, Rees, he had to do more. He had to be a bit more creative. And I get it. And I totally understand that too. But it's just a really difficult thing to do, to call plays when your O-line's getting their butt kicked. And they couldn't run the ball. Even if you think about some of those Tyree, jet sweep stuff was, they got some on that. And Estime had a couple of nice runs, but a lot of it was him. Not anything else. And Diggs had a couple nice things, but it wasn't they didn't have much. They didn't have the interior guys really struggled. Those guys struggled in this game. And I think you got to give credit to, OSU's D-line and Tommy Eichenberg too. I thought he was very good in this game. The linebacker, he was very good in this game too. But they were able to keep Eichenberg and their linebackers clean. Because they were getting no movement.
They were not. They couldn't get to the second level. I mean, they had that one drive in the I think it was the end of the first quarter, second quarter, where they kind of got some push, but beyond that, it just wasn't there.
Yeah, And I think that was if I was going to say that was the biggest surprise of the game, uh, was that Notre Dame, I think, lost on both sides of the line of scrimmage. And they averaged here, what was it? They averaged 4.9 yards per carry. Notre Dame only 2.5. Like, I think if you would have told me,
that's 30 for 76. Like, that's just,
yeah. And if you told me that that was going to happen in the game, I would have told you Ohio State won by 40.
Yeah, like, I made the pick for Notre Dame on the assumption that was flipped. I said Notre Dame would win 28-27 on the assumption that would be the opposite way. So it wasn't the thing. I mean, I think the defensive line, to their credit, especially against the run, it was the one drive at the end where they just got kind of run over. Beyond that, I thought it was close to a stalemate, at least. Pass rush wise, I didn't think it was there, but on offense, it was just no. Like that, and I think that was part of the reason why they weren't they didn't open it up as much on offense as well, because I don't think they thought they could block them.
I don't think they could. They felt confident they could protect, and they didn't really protect. I mean, Buckner got hit a lot.
Yeah,
he got hit a lot when he dropped back. I mean, are there stuff that I think that I wish they would have done different? Like, I think they needed to kind of like manufacture some touches for Styles in terms of like just some short little routes just to get him the ball and just see if he can, like, obviously he was the one guy who broke a tackle and made a big play.
Yeah.
But I mean, really, like, I mean, you could just, and this is what it came down to too, is like, I wasn't surprised that the receivers didn't have a great game, but when you have to rely on a Matt Salerno, and that was a tremendous catch. Great catch. I'm sure we'll talk about the PI later. But that, I mean, first of all, that's the call that they never make that call, but of course they made the call there, but
it was uncatchable. It wasn't even close. Like it works both ways. It's not catchable for the defense, not catchable for the offense. So that to me, that's what I thought. He pulled him down for sure, but like he wasn't going to catch it. So I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. Hold on. We'll just address, because a couple of people have asked the thing. Mike is preoccupied with other ISD stuff tonight, so that's why he's not here. So that's why
he was planning to be on the show, but then that something
something came up.
ISD stuff came up. So
so that's why
he'll be on future shows at the end.
Yes, I'm sure. Like, me and him are gonna be doing a lot of these shows. So, it's not because Mike is too mad to do the show or anything like that.
No, it's definitely not that. No.
So we apologize for his absence, but I think really what it kind of came down to was that Notre Dame had those kind of like explosive plays in the passing game, and that was it. That was it, really. That was, they weren't able to do anything much of anything else, and it's because
the off schedule passing game. It just wasn't there.
And I think and I think one of the things too, and obviously Buckner, I mean, started out 8 of 8, right, and then obviously went colder, and then still made some throws after that too. But I think even if you would have said in this game, and it's just a hard balance, like, I think he should have ran more, like, when pressured, just to like get out and run. You know what I mean? Like there was that one, there's a couple plays there that I'm sure that like he could have done stuff. But I mean, I think it was I mean, Jim Knowles is a really good coordinator. They were fast. That defense was like crazy fast. So there wasn't like a lot of opportunities to get stuff like after the catch because of that kind of stuff. So they weren't like, even if they broke something, they weren't getting much there. I don't know. Like, I mean, I don't think Tommy Rees called the best game possible. But I just think he was kind of like calling the game with his one hand tied behind his back, because the line was getting their butts kicked for the most part. I mean, I will say, if you look at, say, the tackles, Fisher and Alt, and I'll go back and watch the game, see what those guys did. But there's a lot of hype for Ohio State's defensive ends before this game. And those guys really didn't do anything.
No.
It was the interior guys who were disruptive.
Yeah, I think as the game went on, there were moments when you could tell Reese felt, I guess, like you said, hand tied behind his back. But like on the first possession, like you get a big chunk play to Styles right off the top, right, and then you get a roughing, right. So that's like a 70-yard play, like right to start the game, and then you run the ball 3 straight times. It's like quarterback draw. Like you don't know then that you're getting your butt whooped on. You know what I mean? You run it on first down, that's fine. But then you run it again on second and long, and you run a quarterback draw. Like to me, you got to be more aggressive in that situation. Like especially when you know you're playing Ohio State. Field goals are failures in this game. You know, so it's like I understand too. Like okay, it's 1st and 25, and it's very difficult to convert in that situation. And obviously, you know, Ohio State converted a 1st and 25 for a touchdown. And we can talk about that later as well. But they went for it, you know, and I felt like Notre Dame didn't. And look at, maybe they're not going to get it, right? But you end up punting anyway, and you punt to them, and then they go 14 plays, 95 yards for a touchdown. Like I think they do have to be more aggressive. Like he can't.
Yeah.
You can't, it's one thing. Like, I understand what you're saying too, when it's like, okay, they're not getting pressure, but you have to at least try it out because you're going to lose. You can't just hope that your defense is just going to is going to hold them out forever. So that was kind of my thing. Like it's one of those things like I understand, but I don't. Like you do need to have that, like Marcus Freeman talks about all the time, like challenge everything, right? Like that needs to be kind of a mindset. And right there, like I just felt like they weren't really challenging Ohio State as well as they could have in that situation. So I don't know. Do you want to like just kind of go through the game here? Like we talked about the opening drive there. I thought the defense, I thought they tackled, like at least for the first 3 quarters. I thought their tackling was really good for
really good.
Really good.
Really good.
They had a few misses here and there, but like they weren't major misses.
Even then, it's like that Mayan Williams kid. Like, I mean, that's what he does. Like he's a stud.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's like he's an incredibly tough guy to tackle. It's that's if he gets a running head start. I mean, he's like 235 pounds. Like. I mean, a safety. Yeah, you saw like how like Griffith bounced off him. I mean, Griffith was coming downhill on that play. Yeah. And actually, if he wasn't coming that speed, then that would have been a tutty. But he stepped out of bounds. His hit kind of forced him out. But that just kind of showed you too, like that kid is for real. He's legit. But yeah, no, I think the tackling, and then I think just overall, just like I mean. I was kind of shocked at how you didn't really see there were no mistakes in the secondary in terms of like miscommunications or blown stuff. Like if you look at like Mickey got beat on in man coverage on that one blitz, right? And I know we'll go through all the thing, but I'm just using that as examples because he just got beat. Like guys get beat. Sometimes you have to move in coverage.
Right.
Like Cam Hart got beat.
He gets beat, and he also gets the hand in there too. Like he could have gotten the ball out, right? Like he gets beat, but then he's there at the catch to where it's like he's landing, he's almost getting the ball out. So to your point, like that's right. That's just a player losing on a play.
Yeah, and I mean, really, if you think about it, like up until that point, like those kind of plays were just they have more guys than Notre Dame. And that's kind of like where when it comes down to it, they were able to make those plays. But like, I mean, the fact that Notre Dame was matching up with them, like we can say that Jackson Smith Njigba was out, but like Emeka Ibuka is a stud. Like they have like a bunch of other dudes. Yeah. They have a bunch of other dudes there too. Like Julian Flammang, he did play in the game. He was a game time decision, but he did play in the game. He was a nothing in the game. Like, I don't know. Like, I mean, I couldn't be more impressed with the way the secondary played in the game.
Yeah, I thought so. I thought there were 2 plays, and I thought they were both, well, actually 3. I thought they were all kind of mental errors. Like Cam got beat on the he got the defensive pass interference. I thought that was a mental error on his part, like to grab the shoulder pad. Like he didn't need to do it.
No.
He was out of position. He was off balance, but he could have recovered quickly. He didn't have to grab the shoulder pad. So that was one. And then on the next play, on the out route, like you're not in touch with the receiver. You can't look back. You know, like I thought that was just kind of like a poor, just like a mental error. Like it's bad technique. You're playing.
That's bad technique.
You're playing trail, and he breaks on the out route. And before you're in touch, you have to be in touch with him so that if you undercut, you try to undercut the route. But if you can't grab him with your arm, if you miss, it's going to be a touchdown, and that's what it was. So to me, that's poor technique, but it's also a mental error to look back. And then beyond that, I thought he rebounded fine. I thought Benjamin Morrison. He was good. He got a ton of snaps. I can't wait to see the snap counts because he was out there like early. They put him on the boundary. I mean, they've got something with him. I mean, he was to me. We've been talking about Mickey this whole time, and it's not that we're down on Mickey, but I was like Morrison. If we didn't know anything about anything, you would think he was like the upcoming player for them. So he was kind of a revelation in the game. And then the other mental error I thought was by Al Golden blitzing the safeties on 3rd and 11 there. I mean, I'll go to you to talk about it, but I hate blitzing the safeties.
I'm not a fan of blitzing those guys from depth. I don't mind being aggressive there.
Fine.
I don't mind being aggressive there. I didn't like that particular call. And so I tweeted out that, like, I kind of explained the why with it, because Notre Dame, you're trying to win. You're trying to either set yourself up for a free rusher, or you're setting yourself up for one-on-ones, right? That's when you're bringing extra guys. And really, like, I think if you look at it, like Isaiah Foskey, I mean, he was a nothing in the game, really, in terms of like, I mean, Paris Johnson, DeJuan Jones both did a really good job on him.
Yeah.
I think I would say just that the Notre Dame defense line in general, like Jason Van Roll, that's another thing, man. I thought he was going to come out and play. He talked a lot. I'm sorry, he didn't play. He did not make the kind of impact in the game. Then, and obviously he came out right away and got like a dumb penalty. Right. Yeah. So, I mean, I think he was thinking it's 3 and 11. I want to rush 4. And because, and obviously you saw Stroud make some of these plays. Like, I mean, he made some tremendous plays in this game where he, escaped the rush, made throws, guys making on the sidelines. And really those kind of plays were like what kind of killed Notre Dame in the second half. And I guess Golden was probably thinking of that in terms of that call, but like, I don't know. I didn't like bringing those guys from depth. I didn't think it was a great call. But really, when it comes down to it, like, that was, I mean, you give them one bad call. I think most of the other calls were pretty darn good. Like, it
was their 14th point, like that's in a late.
I mean, Andy was still in the game.
Yeah.
And
he had just thinking, because they were on the edge of field goal range.
Yes.
So he's thinking, if I get a sack here, we can take them out of field goal range. Like, I understand.
And that other guy has not, and the other guy has not been good. That's where the thing he missed that one, but he's usually been money from short, and he hasn't been good from deep. So that's probably what he was thinking. And I mean, Golden had just called that blitz beforehand where Maris got chop blocked. I mean, that's because of that call, right? Like, and so I think he's probably just thinking, like, they're not thinking that I'm going to bring heat again, because I haven't brought a lot of heat. But I mean, it ended up burning them.
Yeah. So the thing about blitzing them safe, because it's right in front of the quarterback. So it's not like he knows they're coming, and so, and it's just like when they're so far away, they're never getting there. And like I tweeted out, like Kyle Hamilton did this and he never got home. It's just very difficult for the safety to blitz. I mean, they're often coming free, so that's true. But since they're coming from 10 yards away, they're just never getting there. And the ball goes right over the top. And speaking of the Georgia game, that's how Georgia scored their go-ahead touchdown, was on a safety blitz from Kyle Hamilton. We were completely free, and they threw it up to the wide receiver, and he caught it for a touchdown. So I didn't like it because I felt like you were making it a little bit easy for Ohio State there. Like, it's an easy read, and it's just like, okay, we need their guy to make a play. Whereas like Notre Dame,
I think it was a different quarterback. I think maybe that call would have been fine, but because it was Stroud. And the other thing is they had done such a good job of getting him off his first read.
Yeah.
And just and that was the key to the game, really, was that like how many times he got off his first read. And I mean, any quarterback, very few quarterbacks are as accurate when they're on their third guy they're throwing to, right? Because of mechanics, where their body is positioned, and then they have to get the ball out quicker, and all these things, other factors into it, right? So yeah, I mean, I think if they would have dropped 8 there, probably would have been a better call.
Yeah, and maybe he thought they were expecting that. Like we said, you give up. That's the 14th point you give up late in the third quarter. I mean, Ohio State averages 6.6 yards per attempt, under 5 yards a carry. It's just, you're doing a good job, And Notre Dame, they have Notre Dame has 7 first downs in the first half. They have 5 in the second half. Like, it's just not going to work. Like, you're 3 of 13 on third down. You have 181 yards at halftime. You end up with 253. So it's like 72-yard half. Like, it's
they only ran 48 plays in the game,
and
like, that's just not enough.
Yeah, it's just not. That's not how. We talk constantly about Notre Dame turning the corner, and what do they have to do to turn the corner? We've seen this game over and over again. The defense plays well enough to win, and the offense can't score. So what did you see there? Like, what is your takeaway from? Let's just start with Tyler Buckner. Like, what do you take away from this game? Because I don't have like a great feel for him or the offense, like, kind of at all, right? Like, I need to see them play a game where they're actually able to, on 3rd and 6, like, throw some dig routes, or throw some combination routes where you're hitting someone in stride, or you're making a read, or something like that. Like, what is your feel for Notre Dame offense right now? It's just kind of going forward.
I mean, I don't really have a great feel. Like you said, I don't have a great feel. One, because I think the thing was they thought we're going to run the ball on these guys. And once they didn't have that, I think they were, and I think that was obviously strategic too, because, looking in the first half, one of the reasons you're doing that is because you're trying to keep them off the field. Right. So I get it. That makes sense in that, but like, I don't know. I think I just don't have a good idea of what Notre Dame's identity is going to be, and how much the opponent affected what we'll see the rest of the year. Because I do think, like, in other games where, like, like Matt mentioned when we were texting, like, Buckner couldn't get the corner against these guys, but he's getting the corner against everybody else. You know what I mean? Yeah, so when you have that and you see that, you think a little differently about how you're going to maybe call something, because you're like, maybe on 3rd and 5, you maybe call something like that, but like, they weren't running like those Ian Book quarterback sweeps or whatever, because if they did, it's just like, it would have. I was like, there were so many times I was saying to myself, do not call this, and they didn't, thank God. But like, yeah. Anyways, but I just think that.
So I want to say what's up to Jamil. This is my best friend since high school. I've been friends with him for like 30 years. So just want to say hi to him.
Oh, okay.
All right, go ahead.
Oh, I see. He's a USC guy too. Yeah.
Yeah,
Big
I
win.
live in LA, man. What can I
Yeah.
say?
Yeah. Their big win over Rice, powerhouse Rice.
Yeah.
I think like we saw some 21 today, right? We saw some 21 personnel.
Yeah. We saw a ton of 12.
We saw a
so
ton
much
of 12. We saw a ton of 12, but it was all constricted for the most part, right?
Yeah.
And I think like, you saw some Michael Mayer in the boundary. I don't know. I mean, I just think there's just like so much more that they got to do. Like I don't have a feel for any of the wideouts in terms of like who's going to help them other than like Lorenzo Styles, really. And even then, because like, or no, Lenzy too, for sure. I mean, first of all, whatever, whether that was a catch or not, I don't know, right? But like,
I thought it was a catch.
I thought it was a catch.
I thought he had the arm under
at first, yeah. But anyways, it was a great effort. But like he can be a vertical threat. Like Styles was open on that other one. That could have been a 6 if he hit him there too, right? So these guys are gonna be vertical threats. These guys have speed. That. Well, without Avery Davis, who's the guy that you're gonna be like, we got a 1-on-1 matchup. They're rushing 5 here against their nickel. Who's gonna win here? And if it's not Michael Mayer, right? So we don't know that yet. We didn't get any idea from this game because really
they didn't run enough plays. That's the other problem. When you don't run enough plays,
that's when you don't run enough plays.
You don't know. You don't get into any kind of rhythm or anything.
Exactly. So like the sample size and like obviously like we didn't see enough on third down for doing. And then a lot of those third downs were Henry. Let me just double check the thing here too. But like the third down. So like you said, 3 of 13 on third down. I mean, average distance was 7.6 yards, right? So like, and they didn't have like a lot of like havoc against Notre Dame. So it wasn't like they were like long yardage situations because of that. So it was just like weren't able to run the ball or get the ball into efficiency. So like that was the key with say like the 2020 team. I mean, they didn't have the receivers on that team, but they were always in third and short all the time.
Yeah.
And when you're in like 3 and 4 or less, you got the full menu that you can go to. And when you're at 3rd and 7 plus, I mean, that menu shrinks down and what you can do. And then the menu expands for what the defense can do, right? And that they were just in too many of those situations. And that's just like the worst possible situation you want to get for like a young quarterback his first start on the road. And obviously you saw those, they had to waste a couple timeouts one at the beginning of a drive. Yeah. I mean, those are problems, right? But I don't know if I'd say the beginning of the drive was on Buckner because that might have been like they didn't get the offense out quick enough.
Well, that was they were lined up. They had I think it was Jaden Thomas. He was off line of scrimmage. They had 5, so they had 5 in the backfield. So they had to get his attention to have him move up. So then he moved up, and then they wanted to change the play, but then they started that with 5 seconds up on the clock. It's like obviously this isn't going to work. You got to call a timeout. So I think they lined up wrong initially, and then they wanted to change it. So that's no good. But I agree with you. Like, and for everyone in the chat, like I'm watching the chat, which is actually pretty good. I was kind of concerned that people are going to be very vitriolic in the chat, and people are obviously disappointed, but no one's like being over the top. So I really appreciate that because it's hard to do the show and to monitor that situation. So I really appreciate everyone being cool in the chat. But what I was going to say is that there's a lot of comments in the chat about what this means going forward, and I'm not sure that this means a ton for the season at large in terms of the offense, right? Like we need to see them develop over the course of the next few games here before they get to BYU in October. They should be playing some much more favorable teams, much more favorable matchups up front. No one's going to have this sort of defensive line, at least until they get to BYU. They're going to be physical. And then the Clemson situation is obviously looming. But that's not till much later. So that Notre Dame could be a completely different team by the time that game comes.
Oh, yeah. I think I mean, in terms of the outcome of this game, I mean, obviously Notre Dame fans aren't happy because they lost, but like, Notre Dame showed well in this game. Like, there are people in this game, Notre Dame haters, who watch this game and were like, I think Notre Dame's pretty good. Like, where normally they're I mean, those people are ready to pounce on Notre Dame when they do terrible in these kind of games, and they didn't, right? And the fact that Notre Dame was leading for a large chunk of the game, and that Notre Dame really like kind of, I mean, did what really no one has done to Ohio State in a long time. Like, basically forced them to say, like, I mean, you can't pass, so you're going to have to throw. Like, that's, or no, you're not, you can't pass, you're going to have to run, right?
Yeah.
Like, no one has really been able to do that to them, right? So, and I think that's like, a credit to Golden and the staff for what they did, and the players too, obviously. But I mean, just getting back to like, what the team could be and all that. Like, I think, well, one thing to notice, so like, here's a perfect example is Smith-Njigba last year. Early on the season, he was not lighting it up. He was not the guy. Yeah. And then he took off in that Nebraska game. All of a sudden, he's just like putting up monster numbers every week. And then he just became that guy where they were like, okay, well, he went up a level, right? So the question is, I mean, here's a perfect example. Miles Boykin caught the one pass against Michigan, but you were like, man, this guy really had a great camp, but he didn't really do much in this game. Well, he started to take off when Ian Book took over at quarterback, right? And that just started when Javon McKinley did nothing in the first two games. You're like, oh my God, Notre Dame's got to rely on this guy. He hasn't done much in his career. This is fifth year. End of the year, you look at his numbers, and it's like the last like 8 games were like comparable to like a Chase Claypool type numbers. I'm not saying he was good as Chase Claypool. I'm just saying numbers wise, that's he was, and no one would have predicted that, right? So you have to see how these guys develop and all that too. But when you're thinking about it and you're thinking about like Clemson, it's like, man, they need a lot of guys to take a big jump for them, specifically the offensive line too, to get there, because Clemson is going to bring easily the best defense they play all year. And when you get into that kind of situation, you just like that Georgia game in 2019, right? And the only guys who really could make a play were Claypool and Kmet. That was it. That was it for Notre Dame, right? And because those are the two guys. I mean, the two guys were second-round draft picks, NFL guys, big-time guys. And Notre Dame didn't really have anybody else. Well, who are the big-time guys for Notre Dame? That's the question. We know Michael Mayer. I mean, Michael Mayer, obviously, he's going to be a guy who shows up. But like, that's the question. But if you put it into perspective of like, is Notre Dame like out of the playoff because they lost this game? No, they're not. They actually did enough in this game where they're like, people will still consider them. They have a chance to move up.
They're not going to fall out of the top 10.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, no. And they have quality opponents coming up that they can jump back up. I'm going to put up the super chat. Notre Dame 8, and I don't know what that is, but what happened to our all-world O-line? I think we've talked about it a little bit. They just inside didn't go very well. Got pretty much dominated on both sides, on both aspects, right? On the run and the pass. There was pressure up the middle. There were missed blitzes up the middle. There were, they weren't getting off the linebackers because the defensive tackles were kind of getting in them. So that's what happened. That's didn't play well, right? It's not a good situation.
Well, and I think one of the things that people were talking about with the offensive line and how it could be this all-world thing is because you're like, well, you like the 2 young tackles and you like that these are guys who are obviously they're good now and they're going to get better or whatever, but the potential is there for them to be great. And then you have a guy who is one of the better interior linemen in the country coming back for his 5th year. Well, that guy hurts his foot, and even though Kristofik played, there is a drop off there. And instead of it being like, imagine in this game, if like, you're like, Lug's really struggling. Well, let's try out Christophic, or let's try somebody else in this game. Right. So it really is like, that's like, you take out one guy but it's really at the position where they were hurt the most. And that because the interior is where they were worse. Okay. From Josh Fowles from
Josh,
1 foot down there. Okay. The lack of screens. Well, one thing was they weren't really they didn't send a lot of extra rushers. Not often. So, they're pretty, I think if you go back to it, you'll find that blitz wise, it was pretty low. And I think that had a lot to do with it. Like, because the whole point is, if someone's rushing 4, the plan isn't to throw a screen. You know what I mean? You're trying to catch guys where they're going and attacking, and then you have numbers to create a big play. Right. So, I mean, that's pretty much why there was like lack of screens, because they weren't able to do this. And then some of that stuff too, like even those little, like those quick little play action rollouts where they're trying to hit Mayer on those quick dump offs and quick thing to Tyree too. It's like, I mean, those were covered. Like they were all over those. Right. So I think that's probably got a lot to do with it. And also I know that I think, ND Nation is that.
Oh, nice. Yeah. ND Nation.
No chance of the playoffs. I mean, first of all, I wouldn't base it off this.
Well, yeah, we gotta wait. The season is so long,
it's
right?
so long. I mean, no one would have said Notre Dame was making the playoffs in 2018. No one.
Notre Dame. No one said Notre Dame was making the playoffs. Last year when they lost to Cincinnati, and they finished a spot out, and it looked like they were going to make it. So we don't know.
It's a long way to go.
It wouldn't be the first time. It kind of doesn't matter. So that's the kind of deal. My keynote for Mayer knowing where the first down marker is. That happened a couple times. I don't know. It wasn't sharp from the offense. And the thing about the screens too, and I think what Josh is talking about, like, I think we saw Ohio State do that a good amount in this game. And the thing is, it's like you challenge the corners to be
are you
physical.
talking about just like the bubbles and stuff?
The little bubble. Yeah, little bubble.
I'm going to tell you right now. I can tell you why they didn't do it. They're like, these guys are going to run our guys down. That's 100% why. They were like, I don't think we can make plays in space against these guys. It's like,
well, that's the thing.
I think that's what it was. That's 100% what it was. I think Tom Rees, I'm sure he'd love to call a million streams, because then it's like, let's get Tyler Buckner's confidence up. Just got to throw a quick little bubble here, right? Like just throw a quick bubble, make a guy miss. I think he thought like, man, we're going to get like possible TFLs on this, right? Because of that. That's why I think that's why they didn't do it. Because I think you saw early on, like say like Ronnie Hickman. Oh my God. Like the one play where Ronnie Hickman, I think it was when he ran down Buckner. I was like, oh my God. I mean, I've always been a Ronnie Hickman fan. I think he's a stud. But like when you saw that, I think there was probably a lot of like with their safeties, and it's definitely their thing. And okay, Siderich, is our talent that bad? No, it's not that bad. Ohio State's just that good. That's what it is. It's like there's the difference. There's a difference between the guys that they have. There's a reason they have 15 5-stars. Notre Dame has 2. They have X amount of top 100 guys. Notre Dame has like a third of their top 100 guys. That matters. It does matter. They've put X amount of guys in the NFL draft for whatever, in the first round, whatever, the defensive backs. Notre Dame has put like before Kyle Hamilton, the last guy was Harrison Smith. It was an 11-year break in between, or 12-year break, or 10-year break, or whatever it was. But they are at the point where, and maybe a couple years from now, when Benjamin Morrison's a junior and Jade Mickey's junior, and you have all these guys coming up and whatever, and you got Jalen Sneed and you have all these guys coming up and Prince Cully and all these guys coming up, and then you're like, okay, well, now we got it. But like Notre Dame isn't there yet. And that, I think one of the things is people think that like Notre Dame is there, but like they're not. On paper, that's why there was a 17.5-point spread. That's why the spread was so big, because on paper they have a much more talented team on paper.
So I'm going to push back a little bit, because here's the thing, right? Ohio State, they're more talented on offense as well. And the Notre Dame defense play, like, I don't know what the equivalent is of the offense of holding Ohio State to 21 points. I don't know what that is. But the point is like, you have to, the defensive backs, like the thing about that is the defensive backs have to play those guys. There's no version of like, oh, we're afraid of them, and so, you know, they're going to do X, so we have to, like, you get challenged there, and you have to step up. Like, to me, they're like, Notre Dame's trying to run that little pitch toss play, right, numerous times. Ohio State's chasing that play down too. You know, if you're trying
that's a bad call.
If you're trying that, then get the ball out to Lindsey and Styles and challenge them, and at least try it, because at least then you're putting it on the players. Challenge everything, right? Marcus Freeman. If you are too afraid to run it, then you've already lost, because you're not doing something based on something that
I'm not saying I'm trying to put like, no,
you're saying why they're not doing it.
I'm just saying why. I mean, like, if you're thinking in your head of like why he's thinking, because it's like he's there, he's up in the booth, he's like, he's looking at the call sheet, right? He's like, well, what do I got here? What's gonna work? And I'm just telling you, because I've called plays in games before, and you look at it and you're like, I think we should run the bubble here. And you're like, it's 2nd and 10. We run the bubble. We're probably going to get 2 yards on it, right? And like, I'm not saying that whatever, that whole, what you're saying about challenge everything, 100, yes, you got to do this kind of stuff. And I think he was kind of showing that aggression by like throwing deep and doing some of these things. Like early on, there was a play. So after he missed the Styles deep ball, right? Mm-hmm. I was like, 2nd and 10. I was like, here comes Tommy's going to call run here. It's going to be 3rd and 11. That's what I thought. No, call the play action shot. It was a good call. It was just ball was tipped, whatever. Like, should have been a comeback to Jaden Thomas. But I was like, wow, I was surprised at that call. So I was like, I think they did some of that stuff, but I think he thought that way. But also too, like in terms of just with those kind of things, like, I don't think he was like not totally aggressive, but at the same time too, you have to be able to play a certain way, because you're also being told to play the certain way because to help out the defense. That is a thing too. It's 100% a thing, right? Where you're like, and it's like right there where they took that, remember the play right before the half where they tried to take the shot to Lindsey and it was incomplete. And then it was like, oh my gosh, is Notre Dame going to blow this here?
Yeah.
And you could say situationally it was a bad call, whatever, right? But it was like they were trying to like not sit on the ball. And I don't know how many times people have gone mad at Brian Kelly for like sitting on the ball there, right?
So it's like, that was insane. I thought that was crazy.
I thought it was.
Marcus Freeman didn't like it either, by the way. So
no, I don't think he liked it either, and I don't think I think, well, one, I think too, it was like a miscommunication by Buckner too. Like that could have been a pick. It was a bad. Yeah, it was a bad play.
Good. It was not good.
Yeah. And then also too, maybe we don't know that Buckner. They just only like, maybe Buckner only has a certain part of the menu that we don't know about. Yeah. And this is the other thing. They showed us nothing in camp. They showed us purposely. They showed us nothing in camp. So even us like hyping up guys and stuff like that, it's all based on just like, you know, like tidbits that we've seen here and there, things that we've heard, whatever. It's not like based on like actually seeing guys. So it's like people getting hyped over Jaden Thomas because he beat Clarence Lewis in the one touchdown or whatever, right? Like, we didn't say anything. And it's not to say Jaden Thomas isn't going to be a good player for them this year, but just saying, like, we don't know anything about these guys. Like, we're still, and they, like you said, they only ran 48 plays. We still don't know enough. We still don't know enough about the offense. So there's still a lot to learn.
I mean, for Jaden Thomas, I mean, look, they ran 2 shots to Salerno, and they didn't put Jaden Thomas in that position.
Yeah,
it was kind of unfortunate on.
That's a good point.
On the it was unfortunate on the one when Buckner slid and was targeted that they didn't call, which I don't know how you miss it. I mean, he's laying on his back, and his helmet, the top of his helmet goes into his face. I like live. I thought I understood live because I thought Buckner slid kind of late, but at the same time, like on the replay, it's like, Jesus, this is egregious. But on that play, Jaden Thomas is breaking wide open. The defensive back fell. And Buckner was still behind line of scrimmage, but I think he had committed at that point. So that was a missed opportunity. But like to me, Thomas was out there, given rest, and that just goes to show, like to me, like you're not going 4 wide to throw to these guys, and that's been the case for a long time. Like if it wasn't, it was going to be Mayer, it was going to be Styles or Lindsay if they're out there, and if they weren't, then it was going to go to Salerno. I mean, they threw to Salerno twice, so yeah. I mean, that's and it's like it's good that he made the play, but we're talking about going into Ohio State and winning. That's just I mean, they've got boatloads of 5 stars, and we're throwing it to Matt Salerno, which isn't a dig at Salerno. And by the way, no Joe Wilkins. I didn't.
No Joe Wilkins. Didn't see anything. Tobias Merriweather. And I think that's a guy who, I didn't expect him to play a lot tonight, but like, and maybe if situationally, if they were doing better, he probably would have played more. Maybe got in a little bit, right? Colsey, right? Like, right. So are those guys going to help? And they ran so much 12. That it was
12.
Yeah, a lot of 12, right?
So what did you make of that? Like, did we see any 21?
Yeah, they ran 21.
Was it ever with 2 backs in the backfield, or was it with
not with 2 backs not with 2 backs in the backfield? They didn't run any of that with 2 backs in the backfield. They just did it with Tyree in the slot. I mean, obviously they motioned him in and gave him the ball a few times, but like, they didn't show any kind of split back look, which I wasn't that surprised that you didn't see that, because I didn't like, even when they did that last year, almost every time they motioned a guy out, right? They motioned like out or Tyree out or whatever, right? So I wasn't that surprised.
It's just like, to me, when you go 12, I mean, it was all like, thickness. I mean, it's like we said, or like you said. Like Notre Dame clearly thought they were going to run the ball on them.
Yes,
that was a huge part of the game plan. They were in 12 a ton. I'd imagine they were in 12 more than 50% of the time. I mean, 60% of the time. So that was a huge part of it. But like, that is like, if you're not getting them inside, if you're not pushing 5-6 yards a carry in your 12, and that's what you're doing.
4 yards a carry, even. Yeah.
It makes it hard to, really open it up, because Bauman's obviously not a vertical threat. It's not like Tommy Tremble, like he's just not a guy that you're going to.
He made a pretty good catch on that one, though.
He absolutely did.
Yeah.
Right. But my point is, it's like, you're not going to keep doing that. Right. That's not a dig on Kevin Bauman or anything. It's just, if that's going to be the staple of the offense, and if you're not really moving them, then you're just kind of in a bad way. I don't know. What else from this game, Jamie?
You know what? I think the big thing to kind of take away from it is, if you are getting back to like where Notre Dame is at and where they compete with the top teams, right? It's like, well, what do they get? You know, we just talked about what are they getting out of the skill players? We don't know yet, right? We don't know enough yet. We didn't see enough. What are they getting out of the O-line? I'm going to say Jared Patterson couldn't play in this game. 0 chance he plays until BYU at the earliest.
Yeah,
it would be my guess if he wasn't playing tonight. And obviously he gave it a go, right? So he just couldn't do it. So I'm going to guess he's going to be out for a while. So what are they going to do with these other guys, and how much of these other guys can get better? I mean, do they have to kind of like that was a big problem last year, is they had to protect the line with some of the calls. I can't see them. You can do that. I think with Cone was a better fit for that than would be with Buckner. So, but I think they'll be able to obviously run the ball a lot better on everybody else than they will Ohio State. Minus Clemson. But I mean, Cal's, I think, is going to be a pretty tough team, like defense wise. I mean, the offense, they stink, whatever. But but I mean, also when you look at like North Carolina, yes, their defense stinks. Gene Chizik is a joke. Like, why did they hire this guy? Like, what the heck? You give up 40 in the fourth quarter. Like, give me a break. But they got an offense. You got to stop them. So you're going to have to score points in those games. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. The defense is good. So is this just Foskey just played against 2 tackles that are both going to be high picks, and then he just didn't? I mean, he certainly didn't help his draft stock tonight. He didn't do anything. But it's like he's really got to like turn it on these next little bit. So Isaiah Foskey, got to get more from him.
Yeah.
Defensive, Jason Adamaloa, got to get way more from him. Right. I don't know. I know, like Mike was saying, that he didn't think the linebackers played well. I didn't think the linebackers were bad. I thought they were fine. Like
I thought they were fine too.
I thought they were fine. Also, too, they didn't blitz them today very often. Like, but every time Maris blitzed, like something good happened, basically, right? Like he is special at that. So if they're going to play in other teams where they don't have to protect they don't have to do as much in coverage wise, are they going to start getting more? There wasn't enough havoc in this game. I mean, on both sides, to be fair, they get a lot of havoc on their defensive either. But like they got to get a lot more havoc. And that's what you want to see going forward.
Yeah. I'm going to bring up this comment from Jim Scales, because he says it feels like zero progress. And I get where he's coming from, because it is frustrating, right? Like we watched. I've said it a couple times on this show. Like, we've seen this game over and over again, where it's just like, we can't score enough. But what I will say is, we keep saying there's only like one more step here, and it's the Georgias, and it's the Ohio States, and it's the Alabamas, right? And that's the step. So like, it's going to feel like we're spinning our wheels, because there's the next tier is the top tier, right? And it's been hard to get there. And I think, I don't want to say it's understandable that they didn't get it done in this game. No, I don't want to say understandable like that's acceptable or anything. Like I hope this is coming across the right way, but it's not like a super downer to me in terms of like the season. I guess I'm looking at this from a season, like long-term standpoint, because here's the other part too, is it feels like zero progress. Yes. But at the same time, like Marcus Freeman has never been a head coach, like to me, I kind of feel like I feel better, frankly, about
I feel
Marcus
way
Freeman
better than
I did. Yeah, like I feel like he coached a good football game. Like I feel like the team came out and played, I feel like they were prepared. I feel like they were mentally prepared. Like they were not overwhelmed by the moment. Like you got 106,000 people there. You got LeBron James. You're winning at halftime, you know, and look at 10-7, and it's not a great offensive performance, but at the same time, like this is what Brian Kelly was doing like a decade into his tenure. You know what I mean? So it's not progress, but it's not a step back. And the other part too is the thing that we're super like fired up about is the way that Marcus Freeman recruits. And I think in the back of everyone's mind was you don't want this game to be an absolute flop because that's going to like, what will that do to the kind of aura around the program in terms of like what they're selling to, you know, future players like in high school and that sort of thing. I don't think this game puts any kind of damper on the program or how players feel about the program. Like in my opinion, if you were a player watching this game, if you came in, you were excited about Notre Dame, I still think you should be excited about Notre Dame, and I still think they will be. So on that front, I feel kind of a lot better about the way that the season is going to go and the way that Notre Dame is going to progress under Marcus Freeman. So how do you take that?
I mean, I agree with you there. I also think that I think people don't realize. Well, first of all, did people not read what how bad they were supposed to beat Notre Dame before this game, or that they had literally like they were number one offense in F+, number one EPA per play, like number one yards per play. They're the number one offense in pretty much everything last year. And they're supposed to be even better this year. Like people were saying this was going to be better than the LSU 2019 offense. That's what people were saying. Like NFL scouts said that. So, I mean, I don't know. Like, I thought there was a real chance Notre Dame was going to get run out of the building tonight. And they certainly did not. And okay, this Theodore dude, like, I'm telling you, man, like, no one watched that game who's a recruit. And this is what really matters. Because, yes, of course you want to win the game. Of course you want to. But the main thing is Notre Dame isn't – everyone who knows Notre Dame or follows Notre Dame closely, no one thinks that this is a national championship roster, right? Whatever. Obviously, the players believe the staff, they're going for it, whatever. But anyone who actually follows the team, covers the team, no one thought this is like up there with one of the best rosters in college football. It's not. It's not. It just isn't. Could they be next year or the year after? I think they could. Because if you look at guys like Buckner, Styles, Fisher, Alt, all these guys on offense that we're like relying on, they're second-year players. Diggs, Esteme, all second-year players, right? Even like the Eli Reardon, Jaden Thomas, Colsey, all these guys. Where are those other? Well, the recruiting misses from before, that those guys have to play because the other recruiting misses. And they don't have enough talent at receiver. Well, they're signing 3 top 200 kids for the first time in whenever, right? That kind of stuff matters. The defense back-to-back classes where you're signing like 20 blue chips total or whatever it is, right? That matters. And you have to be in a spot where you're keep on compiling and stacking on top of each other. And that was the one thing with Brian Kelly that, as you know, he won these times, but it was never going to get past a certain level because they're stuck, because the talent never got to the level where they could compete. And you could say, you'd go into the game saying, well, Notre Dame is the far better team than Ohio State, or even with Ohio State, or even with Purdue, not Purdue. I don't know why I said Purdue, Georgia or Alabama. That has never happened where talent-wise you could ever say that. And that's where Notre Dame needs to get to. That's where they have to get to. And this result, and today, look at what some of the former players are saying about Notre Dame today. I mean, they weren't saying that about a lot of these other games. And a lot of times, too, these guys were embarrassed by Notre Dame when they come in and losing these games. And that wasn't the case today. So do I think Notre Dame has a ways to go? Yeah, for sure they do. Right. But I don't think today I don't think, like you said, they didn't take a step back today. And I think most people too, that's what they were worried about, that Notre Dame was going to get blown out. And that would have been a step back. Did they do enough to step forward? No, it would have been great if they won the game, beat Ohio State. That would have probably been the biggest win on the road in how long, but it wasn't a step back.
Right. Yeah. And I've seen a lot of like moral victory talk in the chat too. To me, it's not a moral victory. It's not anything, right? It's just like that. That's how I view the game. Like they played well on defense. They weren't completely inept on offense. It's just like, we don't feel like they were aggressive enough. At least I don't. But it's not like they didn't belong in the field, So to me, it's not a moral victory. It's just like evaluating what I saw and trying to project it forward for the rest of the year. Right. So that's how I see it. Right. Like what Brendan said, like today it's a lost opportunity, right? Like that's frustrating.
Yeah, that is 100%.
It's definitely true, especially when you're sitting there and it's 14-10 and it's like, they need to go down and win the game. Like you need to like that's what made the runs on like the 1st and 25 thing like so frustrating in the moment, because it was like, you're not playing for field position at this point. Like you need to go beat them. Like this is Ohio State, right? You can't just keep giving them the ball, especially after they just scored, So that was the thing. It's like, I understand why you feel like you can't or you shouldn't, but you do need to try. Like you do need to go get it. And it felt like it's same old thing, right? Like we're just gonna we're not gonna.
I actually like that call on 1st and 25. I actually liked it. I thought it was a good call.
I don't know about the 1st and 25 thing, but then you run a jet on 2nd and 18. And
I didn't like that call.
Draw.
Didn't like that call.
Quarterback draw. Like you're not getting it on,
No, didn't like that call either. I didn't like the next two calls, but I liked the first and 10 call or 1st and 25.
I mean, on that one, you do have to just get yards, right? Like I understand.
I think they were thinking they're just going to catch him because they hadn't run that. And I thought they think they were going to catch him. And they're like, Buckner. I mean, you've seen Buckner break tackles and you thought, well, I think if he breaks a tackle, all of a sudden it's a 15.
Right.
And then all of a sudden it's 2nd and 10.
Yeah. It's the fact that I feel like you're handing the ball off behind the line of scrimmage going sideways on 2nd and 18. Like, I know it just worked, but to me, it's just kind of like unserious, like, come on. So that's how I feel about it, right? Like you had an opportunity to win and you didn't, and so you don't get the opportunity back. That was the deal. So
that is disappointing. And I think the other thing, I think when you look at it too, because Notre Dame was worse, you trying to was worse on both sides of the line, and then there was a lot of we're going to be an O-line and D-line driven program. Well, that shows you got a way to go because they were better than you. Yeah. They were better than you up front. And really, that was the difference in the game because they were better than you up front. Yeah. Because you had the better game plan on defense, that's for sure. You had Al Golden outcoached Ryan Day. Like,
very impressed with him. Very impressed with Al Golden. Yeah. He beyond the blitzing the safeties thing, which I didn't like, but beyond that, I thought he was solid. He had a great opener against a really tough opponent. So, I thought he did a really good job. So, what do you say? Is that good for tonight, Jamie?
I think that's good. Yeah,
I think that's good. All right, it's getting late. Everyone needs to get to bed. So, thank you everyone for tuning in. It's a 21-10 loss. We'll go again next week. Subscribe to the channel, man. Hit the like button on this chat. We're going to be doing this after every game. Next week we'll probably have Mike Frank on, and he'll hopefully that'll be kind of a more jovial situation, and we'll have a victory to talk about.
And you'll hear Mike on Power Hour talking about the game.
He'll be involved. I'm debating doing a live show tomorrow morning. I always wake up wanting to talk about the game, so I might just do that. I haven't decided yet. It seems the time I'll wake up, but look for that. Look out for that, guys. So I'm gonna come on and we'll get that going again. So for tuning in. Thank you for everyone in the chat for being cool and not being so bad. Everyone's frustrated, but that's okay. So we'll talk to you soon. Go Irish. We will talk to you maybe tomorrow. So look out for it on YouTube. Thanks, guys. Bye.